Ho 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 everybody, so it's full Christmas mode here at Case Flower School. So again today is a pre-recorded video because obviously I'd say myself and Deirdre are probably out drinking or shopping or eating. What do you think we're up to?
Oh, I'd say...
Or we could be just having a hangover. Maybe we were out last night. So what we've organised for the week or two coming up to Christmas, in case you've missed us, is that we organised a couple of pre-recorded videos showing you how to make or decorate some Christmas door wreaths. Now in saying that, we want to kind of pretend that this is real. So why don't you join in as normal, let us know where you're watching from, comment underneath, and listen, what's the weather like? God knows what it's like because obviously I'm doing this about 3 weeks in advance. And today in Dublin, in real life, you know that way, it's an absolutely gorgeous morning. But you're probably the day that you're watching this video, it's probably pure shite. So comment underneath, let us know where you're watching in from and obviously what's the weather going to be like. So I have a selection of material today. I decided to go for reds, you know the way, seeing I had the red top on, we said we'd go for red. So first of all, some of you are doing this kind of like commercially as a business. And others, you know the way, are doing it just for the fun, maybe as a hobby, or maybe want to make a nice present for somebody. Because I have to say, a door wreath is a perfect present to give somebody, you know that way, definitely cheer them up, and sure everybody needs a Christmas door wreath. So the thing is, the easiest way is to buy a ready-made or a pre-made base. And by the way, everything that I'm showing you now could be done on an artificial base. Now I've seen like the likes of Dunn's or Penny's or The Range, they have artificial bases that you can buy in and you can decorate them up yourself. But at the end of the day, you can't beat a fresh base. And the smell of this, if cameras could smell, the scent of this is just amazing. So this is a ready-made base, and you can buy this from your local florist or your local garden centre. Now a lot of you are probably wondering what size it is. It's made on a 12-inch frame. So just to show you there at the back, that's the size frame that it's made on. Now I've done lots of videos with you throughout the year showing you how to make your door wreath bases yourself, you know the way. So in case anybody wants to make them from scratch, I have all the videos out there. Follow us on YouTube. So just go to YouTube, search Case Flower School, search door wreaths, and there's loads of tutorials. But today it's kind of like nice and relaxing because as I said, we're doing this pre-record. So when I demonstrate or show you how to make your door wreath, I always show you the trick or the technique of coming off the frame so that you make them a lot bigger. So even though they call this a 12-inch base, you can see in reality it's obviously a lot bigger. It's about 20 inches. Now the material that I'm using today is from a wholesaler who serves people outside the trade. So they're called evergreen silk plants, and it doesn't matter where you are in Ireland, Northern Ireland, Southern Ireland, or even the UK, you can buy all this material and they'll send it out to you. Now they won't have the fresh base, okay? You'll have to get that locally yourself, but they do have artificial bases just to let you know. So this was a stem of kind of like a holly, it's artificial, do you know the way? But the stem itself is very realistic, though, so isn't it? It's beautiful. And the way like the little holly berries are divided up. In a flower arrangement, it'd be absolutely gorgeous. But unfortunately, I've decided today to cut them all up. So I'm going to get 8 separate pieces out of it, which actually is great value. And that's the thing, when you go onto the website, somebody might tag them there in the comments below, I'd really appreciate it. Normally, what's her name? Celine Rock, are you there? Normally Celine is a great tagger, she is, right? And she'll tag them. So if you just contact them, go onto their website and you'll see this. They have this in white as well, by the way, in case you prefer to do it in a different colour. And then the next thing you need is 20 gauge wires. So again, you can buy the wires from Evergreen Silk Plants. And all I'm doing is what we call the hairpin bend and wrap it around. So each of these little individual pieces of holly are all going to be wired onto an individual 20 gauge wire. So that way it's really economical, I get great value, you know that way, and instead of sticking in one stem with 8 pieces, I got 8 individual pieces for dividing throughout the base. So it works out cheaper for me, but it also looks much, much nicer. The other thing that I'm going to use today is pine cones. Now maybe at this stage you've collected the pine cones yourself, but again, all the wholesalers, all the flower shops, all the garden centres, and even Evergreen Silk Plants, they're all selling small bags of pine cones. And you can wire all them up on your 20 gauge wires as well. Now if you haven't watched one of our videos where I show you up close, because obviously with the lives, Even though it's not real live, you know, but with our live we can't come in close. But if you go to our YouTube channel, I do have a close-up video of how I wired the pine cones. So here's all my pine cones, they're all wired already on 20 gauge wires. Also, I'm going to use some lotus heads or lotus pods in it. And again, I have these all wired. And if you go to the YouTube channel and just search Case Flower School wiring the lotus heads, and you'll be able to see close-up detail. I'll be doing it 2 or 3 times. Voice is going there. Now, also, when I was up in Evergreen Silk Plants, he had these other berries, okay, and they were also on a stem, and I done the same thing. I cut them all up and I made individual ones, and there was a little bit of leaf on them, and they're all wired on 20 gauge wires. And also on another stem, he had kind of these berries, and they look like they have snow or ice or a bit of frost. It's probably frosty today when you're watching here. Again, anyone that's joining us, let us know where you're watching in from and what's the weather like, you know what I mean? But these berries all have a little bit of frost or snow on them. They all came on one stem. I cut them up individually, like I showed you there a few minutes ago, and I have them all wired as individual pieces. But what I loved, okay, was these poinsettias, okay? They're kind of like a handmade, and they came flat, so they didn't look anything. But what you then do, each petal, they're kind of like a flocked velvet, full of glitter, you know me for the bit of bling. So you're able to kind of go along then, and there's a wire inside them. And you see the way I'm able to mould them and curve them and get the shape, you see? And like giving them, like rather than them looking flat looking, I'm opening it all out. And again, you can move and mingle the petals around, and there you get these beautiful poinsettias. So they're going to add that luxury feel to it. So I'm going to use 3 of them. Now remember, when you're buying most of these items, or if you're picking items, 3 is always a good number. Now I know that was one stem and I cut it up, you know what I mean? But if you're picking out something bold or focal, which this is going to be bold or focal, 3 is a good number to work with. Don't put 1 in. It's a bit like, oh look, there, she only had 1. And don't put 4 in, because 4 makes a square shape. Now, bow-wise, I've done lots of videos, and I've used like the velvet bows, and I've used the tartan bows, and the glittery bows, and so on. So when we were in Evergreen Silk Plants, we went another little bit further up the road to Carlingford. I think it was about another 20 minutes or so, half an hour, and we went into O'Neill's Flowers, and these were rolls, and this is actually like felt. That's the best way I can describe it. This is a full roll, just to give you an idea. We bought a couple of them, and they were only €5, okay? So, and you'll get them on the O'Neill's website. So www.o'neills.ie. O'Neillsflowers.ie, and you can buy this ribbon from them. But again, you might see something else that you fancy. So this is really cozy. So, oh god, me reindeer antlers. So if it is very cold where you are, you can see there you can make a scarf out of it. So I'm going to measure out the length of it, and I'm going to make my bow. Now you will find with these wider ribbons, I'm going to push some of the glitter off the table here, it can be easier to make the bow actually on the flat of the table rather than kind of up in the air. So I'm starting off by making what we call like the breast cancer bow. So I'm just laying it on the table. I'll hold it up now in a second, okay? Just so that I can see how much fabric I actually need. And then I'm going to cut it, but I'm going to give myself a little bit extra, okay? I'm just cutting straight across. I'll fancy it off later on. Okay, so now I'm just going to hold it up just so that you can see it. So there we have our collar bow, or our breast cancer bow. And you can see the way it's crossed under the chin. And then you bring the back part in behind it, okay? And you kind of say to yourself, Jeannie Mac, it looks like it's gone all over the place. It'll be fine, it'll all work out. So then, from up in between the legs, as I call it, and down in between the cleavage, okay, you're going to do lots of little gathering, lots of little creasing, pleating, or squashing and squeezing. So here I am, pleating, squashing, squeezing, creasing, squeezing, plotting, pleating, all the way across, until I have it scrunched in there nice and tight. You're probably saying, what did she say there last? I don't know what I said. So now I'm going to get a 20 gauge wire, and I'm going to wrap the wire, the top of the wire, around the centre of it. So the short piece of wire is about 3 centimetres long, and the rest of the wire is the rest of the length long, okay? I'm going to squeeze these 2 pieces of wire together. Hopefully you can see that. We'll just hold it against the screen. Squeeze them together, and the long piece of wire gets wrapped around the short piece 4 or 5 times and straighten back out again. Then you're able to go back, and you can then fluff out the loops. You know, that way, kind of like fluff them out, put your hands in between them, and you can see the way it's nicely gathered, you see in the centre. So then the tail pieces, the 2 tails then, I'm going to fold them over in half. So you see the way you'll have the open side of the fold and then you have the curved or the folded side of it, okay? From the open side, I'm cutting on a 45-degree angle like a triangle, and that's how I get that dovetail cut, you see, at the end. And then I'm going to do the same. So fold it over in half. So it's from the open side, so the corner, you cut up on a 45-degree angle. The more of an angle you go, the sexier your tail is, okay? Cut that off, and there we got our end. Now, we're ready now for decorating our wreath. So it's getting all your work, you know what I mean, getting all your mechanics, all your materials, getting them all organised and prepared, getting them wired up. That takes the hard work. Now we're on to the fun part. So that's why I had a lot of it done so it doesn't get too boring for you. So for making the actual wreath, what you do is you work on a table that's comfortable. So you'll probably find like your island, you know, your kitchen island if you have one. Because unless you're very small, your kitchen table, you'll be bent over and your back will kill you again at the end of the day. So bring the wreath frame over the edge of the table. That's really important. That one hand can nearly like go right underneath the base, you know, that way up through the middle of it there. So that's, you know what I mean, it's overflowing the edge of the table. The side that you're going to work on is always at your tummy. That's important, okay? I see people and they're working over that side, you know what I mean? Always have it close to your tummy where you're working with. With the bow, decide to yourself, do you want your bow at the bottom or would you like your bow at the top? Now, I'm always mad about the bows at the bottom. I much prefer them, but it's completely personal taste. So again, love a little bit of feedback. Would you prefer your bow at the bottom or at the top? So just comment below. You never know, there could be a prize. Even though this is pre-recorded, we always go back in and we respond to all our comments. So just because Deirdre and myself are probably on a hangover home in bed, like we'll be after sobering up tonight, we'll be back on responding, and you never know, there could be little spot prizes. So back to inserting. The 20 gauge wire goes down through the frame. Okay, my right hand is here positioning the bow exactly where I want it to go. My left hand is underneath grabbing the wire, and it's making that hairpin bend or that U-bend or the horseshoe bend and securing the wire back up into the base. Not going in that easy, there you go, went in easy. And then we can fluff and we can puff out our bow and just make sure that it's nice. Janie Mac, if that was all that was on the wreath, doesn't it look gorgeous as it is? Next thing then, I'm going to add in the poinsettias. So these luxury poinsettias, they came on a stem. There's kind of wire inside the stem. I did nothing to them. All I did was I pulled off the label. So there was a little made in County RD, or made in County Louth, it didn't say that. I just took the little sticker off them. So I'm going to use 3 of them. If you find it hard to gauge, kind of like lay them on the wreath frame so you can kind of guess where you're going to place them. The easiest way is if I put one directly opposite the bow, right? So I'm going to turn the wreath frame around so that the bow is now looking at you. And that part is close to my stomach. And now, don't worry about the tag still on it. You're not going to see it. It'll be at the back, right? So I'm now going to press that down through the spruce. Right hand is positioning it, okay? The left hand is underneath, grabbing that plastic wire, or the kind of like where it's covered with the brown gutted tape. It's making the little horseshoe bend or the U bend, you know that way, and it's sticking it back up into the spruce. Ooh, taking a little bit of pressure, there we go. And again, I can fix the flower around if it got knocked out of place. So there's our first flower in. Now I'm going to put one to one side, and it's just going to have a little bit of space. So the same thing, bring that side over the edge of the table at your tummy. Hold it with your right hand, secure it where you want it. Now obviously if anybody's left-handed, have we any left-handed watching, okay? If you're left-handed, you obviously do it the opposite way. So my left hand, okay, is just grabbing the wire underneath, making that little horseshoe bend, you know, the little U bend, and securing it back up into the frame, and that'll hold it in place. And now I'm going to bring this side over the edge of the table, and I'm going to get my third flare. Same idea, press it down. And by the way, when you're pressing down into the base, sometimes you hit a twig. It's kind of like, if you wanted to hit it, you wouldn't hit it, but when you don't want to hit it, you're guaranteed to hit it. So that happens, just come back out and just try a fraction over to one side or the other, do you know that way? And it'll normally go up for you. It's the same underneath when I'm sticking the wire back up into the base. Sometimes I hit a twig, so I just have to wiggle around until I find a little spot that I can get into. So then I'm just manoeuvring our 3 little flowers around. So there we are, we're our 3 little flowers and our big felt bow to start off with. Okay, now it's kind of a little bit of filling in. So what I'm going to do is I'll start off with a couple of the lotus heads, okay? So I'm just going to insert a lotus head, lotus pod, down in between the flowers, the flower heads, okay? So So just straighten out my wire. Sometimes, as I said, if you hit a twig or you hit a branch, what will happen is the wire will bend up a little bit, and it's just that little bit more difficult to get in. Just lifting up the bow there, and I'm going to put a lotus pod underneath. I love the lotus pods and the pine cones because I always kind of feel they're very natural looking. And you can see the way I spin it around on the table, that always the side that I'm working on is kind of closer to my tummy, and also it's overlapping the edge of the table. So I put 4 4 lotus heads, kind of one in between each flower and one down on either side of the bow. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on the pine cones, and I'm kind of working towards the outside of the wreath frame. I'll show you now what I mean. You see the way I'm kind of bringing them more to the outside. So that's something, a little tip for you. When you're using these large bases, okay, that I have today, it's a 12-inch base, but it's really 20 inches, okay, is sometimes people only keep the decoration around the centre of it, and it looks really miserable looking because all you have is all that greenery around the outside. So by having it overlapping the table, I can insert the pine cone in on a slant, you know, that way, and I'm keeping the pine cone more to the outside. I'm not following any system or any pattern. So far, I've 4 pine cones in so far. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's what I'm doing, is I'm just going to add the pine cones around the outside. Pine cones are really cheap, and they're a great filler for door wreaths. And they're even cheaper if you collected them for nothing, you know, that way. And some of you maybe have sprayed your pine cones, where you can spray them gold or silver. I don't know if it's Aldi or Lidl. Can anyone remember? It was in the magazine there recently, where they have the sprays for $4.99. Now their sprays are brilliant, okay? I normally go to the Aldi up off the Kylemore Road there, and I buy the sprays there, you know what I mean, for $4.99, and like they work, like they're brilliant, like the gold spray, the silver spray. Now one of their golds is kind of what they call a brilliant gold. It's a real shiny gold. And the other gold is more of an antique gold, and it's more of a flatter colour gold. Now, it's whichever one you prefer. I suppose the gold that's on this wreath is quite blingy, so I'd probably go for kind of more of the brilliant gold. I'll just count my cones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe 10. 10 cones is what I did, just around the outside, just to let you see what it looks like. So we have like kind of the all natural with our lotus pods and our pine cones. Then we have the glitter, you know, with the poinsettias. And now I'm going in with all my different types of holly berries, okay? Probably won't use everything that I have there, but I don't want to skimp on it. And I do want like lots of reds and lots of different textures. So I'm starting off with the smaller one. This is the one that I broke up in front of you. Do you remember there was 8 little sprigs on the one stem? I probably won't use all 8 of them. Now I'm not following any particular pattern at all, right? I'm spinning it around on the table. You can see my eyes are looking at the camera. So I spin it around on the table, I look down, and wherever my eye is drawn to, that's where I kind of add it in, right? So I'm at the bow now, so I'm going to spin it around. My eye is drawn here, so that's where I'm going to put the next one. So we call that here at the school the cop-on spot. So it's a bit like your mammy walking into your bedroom and saying you didn't do that, and you didn't do that. Or you the wife, and you go home to the husband and say you didn't clean the dishwasher, or you didn't empty the dishwasher, and he thinks he's done a great job. Your eye gets trained and you notice these things. But in floristry we call it the cop-on spot. Your eye is kind of drawn to an area where you might need a little bit of red berry. So that's where I just put in a couple of them going around. Now I have all our lovely frosted ones, and I'm going to add them in around the outside, kind of between the pine cones. And I might add in maybe a frosted one, and then maybe one that's unfrosted. You know that way, just kind of here and there. And again, no particular pattern. So I can't say it's between every pine cone or it's between every lotus head. Just as I turn it around, wherever my eye is kind of drawn for, I am going kind of every second one, you know that way, as in the berries. Sometimes I'm picking up a frosted one, and the next time I'm kind of picking up the natural one. But as I spin it around on the table, I'm not using a particular area where I'm actually putting it in. So spinning that around between the pine cones here and there, and again it's just bringing that luxuriness, is there such a word, to the outside of the wreath, and again it's making it look that little bit bigger. Now again, you can see the way I struggled there, I'm hitting a branch another way, so just come back out, go back in again, and then just secure the wire up underneath. I find when I'm demonstrating these, sometimes you, the public, you wonder, is she really sticking the wires underneath? You can see there's no wires hanging down. Every one of the wires has been secured up underneath. Now when you're doing this yourself at home, you might kind of like struggle a little bit at the beginning, kind of just till you get the feel of it. And that's why it's really important that you have the right gauge wire. When you go into your flower shop or your garden centre to buy the wires, and they say to you, oh, we have 22, they'll do. They won't do. 22 is half the thickness of the 20 gauge wire. So even though it's a bigger number and you might think, oh God, it's going to be strong. No, it isn't. It's the opposite way to the way you think it. So they definitely won't do. So make sure it's 20. Now you could get 19, but 19 is a bit difficult for you to be wrapping. You know that way, like when you're only starting. And again, just to give you an idea what it's looking like so far. Now the last thing I want to do is see just around the inside, like the way I went around the outside, I just want to add a little bit of berry. And I'm just going to use up what's left over. So I have one frosted, one kind of natural, and 3 of the little cheap one, you know, that I started off with at the beginning. So this time I'm overlapping over the edge of the table, but I'm coming in from that direction so that the berry is kind of facing towards the inside. And I'm not following any particular pattern, you know the way, I'm just randomly turning it around, and wherever my eye is drawn to, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm just picking up whatever berry is there, adding them in. As I said, I haven't got an even amount. I haven't got a particular number. Do you know that way? I'm just going to use up whatever I have left over just because I have them all wired up. That's a nice one, that big luxury one. And here's our last one, which is just one of them little kind of like cheaper ones. So somebody's going to ask me, how many berries did you put in all together? I showed you all at the very beginning what I was going to use. So, and if you go through the video, you can be counting them as I go along. Or as I always warn you, should be taking notes as I'm doing it. So here we go. There is our luxury all red kind of Christmassy wreath, okay? Again, it's catering, I suppose, for all tastes. We have a little bit of naturel. We have the bling and the sparkle with a bit of gold. And again, for people that like the Christmas red berry, lots and lots of different textures. And the scent of this is just amazing. So I hope everybody enjoyed that tutorial. Just a little reminder, our next module 1 for beginners is starting just after Christmas. So make an ideal Christmas present for somebody. And do you know that we sell gift vouchers here at Kay's Flower School? So if you go to our website, www.kaysflowerschool.com, and just scroll down through the menu and you'll find our gift vouchers and you can buy them for any amount. For anybody that's interested in our Module 1 course after Christmas, just scroll down to the Professional Floristry Training courses, and in the drop down you'll see Module 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now we have some great news. Skillnet, okay, Skillnet are based in Ireland. They are giving 25% funding for anybody that lives in Ireland and that's employed, okay. They will pay over 200 euros towards your course, okay, here at Kay's Flower School. If you're unsure about anything, best thing to do, drop me an email and I can reply back to you, sending you all the information. So our email address is info@kaysflowerschool.com. If you have any questions at all about the wreath I've just made, put it in the comments. If you have any questions about the courses, put it in the comments. And I'm going to pop on later on this evening and I'm going to respond to everybody. Hope everybody has the most amazing day. Have a fabulous Christmas and ho ho ho. Talk to you all very soon.